15, mainly about ion channels. So I will break this lecture of ion channels into parts, so let me call this one. Today's lecture, I'll discuss models of a single ion channel. Okay, so we will think that there is a membrane and there is one ion channel that is opening and closing. Okay. In the next lecture, will be part 2, I'll discuss models of many ion channels that can communicate between each other. But today, it will be about single ion channel models. So, first of all, let me just say what are ion channels. So these are pore-forming membrane proteins. So they are gates of ionic flow, and they are gates that, when they are open, they let matter go in and out a cell. And there are different types. There are, let's say, more than 300 types of ion channels. In cells, and they are usually classified by the gate, put quotation marks, gate key. Okay, so you have to think about the ion channel like a gate that you can open, and depending on which key you use, there will be different types of ways in which biology can open gates. So one way is the way I'm doing here, which is I use a mechanical force to open ion channels. One way would be mechanically gates. Channels, which could be opened using pressure, movement, or it could be sound. Okay, and one example is in hearing. This is one type. An example is active mechanosensory hearing. So in the ear, what we get is sound that enters in our ear, and this excites a type of cells that are called the hair bundles. And so there's sound wave entering in this system, and this produces that some channels get open because of the sound pressure that enters in the cell. Okay, this is one type, but another type would be if I have this door, but I have a key. So the door has this here an aperture, and I have the key that opens the door. This is different than if I push the door. So this in biology is called Ligand Gate. Ligand Gate ion channels. So here I'm thinking about ligand binding to the channel. Channel, so I can think of like there's a membrane, and here is the channel. The channel has a receptor, and the receptor is specific to a given ligand. So there is a molecule that can bind here and make this gate open. Okay, but of course, different channels have different ligands. So others will have, for example, two ligands that are, okay, this is a sketch, okay, and the sketch says that there is a square molecule that can come here, which are different to these circle molecules. This is, again, an illustration, but this is to tell you that some channels work this way. And, okay, one example for this is the synaptic transport. transport in synapse or endocytosis. Right? Another one is voltage gate. Ion channels. So this is when there is a voltage difference in the membrane that opens the channel. So the membrane has a voltage. This you can see, you can know very well because you have this exercise you have to solve in the homework. But this can be, you can also apply a voltage difference between the two sides of the membrane, and this can generate the opening of the channel. This is what I call voltage gate. So voltage difference in the membrane. Difference in the membrane, and example is the sodium-potassium axion potential. Potassium ion axion potential. But there are many more, so this is just to give you an appetizer of what I will follow. Okay, something I forgot is in the, as a reference, I will follow the book of Breslov, which I will follow until the end of the course, mostly, on chapter 3. So most of the things I will say are in this book. I'll send you later the precise reference. Okay, so let me go to models, specific models. So I'll go first in single ion model. And here I will discuss, okay, so this will be an ion channel that could be closed or open. And something very important is we can make models with different amount of details. Okay, so you can think about the transport through the channel as, for example, you need to open a gate. So there's one gate, you open and this goes through. But you could think that this channel has a more detailed structure and has two gates. So there is an entry gate here and there is another second gate here. That would be also a model for a single channel but with two gates. So you will have different states. You will have different statistics and fluctuations. So first, I will just think about the simplest, which is a channel that is open or closed. There will be a gate that is either like this, closed, or like this, open. Simple model for a channel, the simplest I can think of. So this is closed, this is open. And I would say there are different rates for opening. This will be alpha, opening rate, and this will be beta, the closing rate. Remember, here I'll say time is continuous, but the state is discrete. So there are two states, close, open, but time is continuous. So alpha and beta are rates, right? So if you remember, this is a continuous time Markov jumpers. Okay, so it's a two-state model. It is often called telegraph process. That's other names, but telegraphic process. Why? Because in the, I don't know if you know the telegram, maybe you are too young for this, but telegrams were like messages that were sent like zeros and ones. So something that you press the button and there's a noise, and then there's nothing. Then there's noise, there's nothing. So it's two-state, which is like you see here. So there will be the C and the O, close and open. It will be timed, and the system will do something like this. So one trajectory of this model will be like this. The channel opens, the channel closes, opens, close, opens, close, opens. Okay, this is one example, but as I say, this is fluctuating, so there will be many types of trajectories that will be always looking like this. All right. So again, depending on the type of channel, the alphas and betas will change. But for example, if you say this is a voltage gate channel, the alpha will depend on voltage and beta will depend on the voltage. Okay. But all I will do is I won't make any assumption how do they depend on the voltage. I will just go on with alpha and beta and see what I can get. Okay, the first thing you should know is the master equation. Okay, for this model there's a master equation. Yes?
What's the purpose of this part?
Can you speak louder? I cannot hear.
What is the purpose of this part?
Sorry?
What's the purpose of this part? Because we talk about ion channel.
Yes.
What's the purpose?
Of the ion channel?
Of this part. What's the purpose?
I don't understand. What is the purpose of... So the purpose of this part is to introduce simple models of ion channels in biophysics. Okay, I don't know if your question is what is the purpose of the ion channel or what is the purpose of the lecture?
Because you consider the gate and you say you consider the gate of the ion.
Yeah.
And
okay.
The purpose is study how flow the ion.
Okay. So the purpose is the following: that here there are ions, and here there are also ions. And this system, the ion channel, is what lets the ions go through or not. So this is what can generate flow of charges through the cell in one direction or in the other. The purpose of opening and closing is transport. So if you have, for example, beta is much larger than alpha, this thing will be more closed than open. So then these ions will stay here in the cell. But sometimes the cell needs ions to do chemical reactions, for example. Then it is interesting for the cell to have this gate closed in this situation. But sometimes the cell needs to get ions, even though there is a big difference of concentration with the extracellular medium. The cell needs to get more and more ions to, for example, burn ATP, or for example, or for synthesizing ATP, which happens sometimes in photosynthesis. So then you need a gate that gets these ions inside the cell. That's the purpose of the gate, to get the transport of molecules to the cell, inside or outside. Okay. There's another thing that cells do is they eat. No, you get food. So the food has to enter to the cell through the membrane, and the membrane doesn't take everything like for diffusion. It is not that a molecule is passing by and the cell accepts everything. No. You need a wall that is selective. And the way you do this selection is with channels. Okay, it's like when we talk about the virus. The virus is not affecting every human and killing every human because you have walls. The virus has to recognize, to do a binding, like it's done here. It has to bind, and then the cell recognizes, okay, this is something nice, and it opens the gate. Okay? So this is like a control for the cell.
And here you talk about voltage. The voltage here is what, the number of particles of ion, or?
Be careful. The voltage would be the voltage difference. So here there will be different charges here in the surface, in the outer surface than in the inner surface of the membrane. That's a voltage. But you can also open, okay, I can bring some slides in the next lecture. You can also apply a force here and destroy the channel. This will be mechanically gate channel. Okay? This is a gate. The gate opens and closes, and there are different ways, different physical forces that you can apply to open the gate. And these are some examples.
So this means the voltage we have here is the external voltage we apply in the...
Yes, exactly. So if I have this gate and I put suddenly a very, very strong voltage here, I don't know, I put 1 volt, this will break up for sure, because the cell, the voltage is 60 millivolts. This is what I explained to you. It's around 100 millivolts. This I explained to you in my lectures. Okay, so if I take the cell, a thin membrane, and I put a voltage of 1 volt, this will, I tell you, will destroy all the channels. Okay? It's so there are many ways to open these gates. This is what I try to explain here. And now I will just think about one of these gates that opens and closes stochastically. Okay, it opens with rate alpha and closes with rate beta. And depending on the type, the alphas and betas will depend on the external voltage or on the concentration of ligands close to the channel or on the mechanical force. Right? That's the motivation, but I'll do a very abstract model. Okay?
Professor, in real life, where this voltage comes from?
Sorry?
In real life, where this voltage comes from for opening and closing?
Well, it comes from the fact that the cell is not just pure water. There are ions all around. This is what I try to explain in my first lectures. There is a lot of charges surrounding the cell in the molecules. So the molecules, for example, the proteins, are charged. They are not neutral objects. It's not just a ball, a plastic ball, the protein. Okay? So there are charges all around the cell, inside the cell, in the cytoplasm, outside. So this is all around. And especially if you think about neural transmission, you think about neurons, there is an electrical impulse going through your neurons. This is a big electric field happening. There is a voltage difference. If you don't have a voltage difference, think about an electrical circuit. If you don't have a voltage difference, you don't have a current. So it's, I would say, everywhere in biology. Charges are essential. So you cannot do a realistic model of biology thinking, okay, there's no charge anywhere. This is not possible. Okay. If we go to nanoscale and we say, okay, we can say all the medium has the same amount of charge, fine, but it makes sense. All right, fine. If there are no more questions, I continue. As I said, this is a simple model of a gate opening and closing stochastic. Here, this is the model, 2 states, 2 rates. This should be trivial for you to know that this is the master equation. This is for closed, this is for open. This is probability to be in a closed state at time t. Okay, so I'm doing this notation. To be in closed at time t, and t0 is the probability to be open at time t. Okay. Before in my lecture on stochastic process, it was everything x. X was 2 things. Here is like x equal 1 and x equal minus 1. But it doesn't matter. You can write it like this. Okay. So these two, Tc, you are losing probability from C. So you have to think about this like there is a C, that is O, and there are rates. Alpha and beta. That's it. That's this minimal model. So master equation, I lose probability from C with rate alpha. I gain probability from O with rate beta. And then for O, it's very simple. From C, I gain probability with alpha, and I lose probability rate beta from O. That's the master equation. So I ask you to write the master equation, almost trivial. Okay? This you should all know, very, very simple. Now, well, one thing you see is that if you sum, if I sum these two, I have this with this cancels, this with this cancels, is 0. But this is just normalization, because PC plus P0 is 1 at all times, so it doesn't depend. Okay, this is just a check that things have done well here. Something you can do from this model is to solve it this model is solvable analytically. You can know what is PC of t. Okay, exactly. So, who can tell me how can I solve these equations? There's at least 2 ways to solve these equations. But there's one very simple. Know what this is?
Actually, we can write it as a matrix and calculate the eigenvalue and the eigenvectors.
Sure, this will be the most academic way, and yeah, this is the general formula, and this is something you do when things are very complicated, let me say. But this is very, very simple, because you can take this equation and put P0, so you can do partial t P of c equals minus alpha Pc plus beta 1 minus Pc.
1, yes.
Sure, so then you have an ODE for Pc, which is solvable. Okay, as simple as this. So partial t Pc equals minus alpha plus beta Pc plus beta, and then P of 1 minus Pc. Okay, this you can solve, and once you solve Pc, you get P of. Easy. If it gets more complicated, so you have 3 states, 4 states, 5 states, is what you say. So you write this as a transition matrix, you get eigenvalues to solve it. Okay, but this equation, you should all know how to do, how to solve it, okay? You should all know how to solve it. It's simple, no? It's the exponential and so on. Okay, this is like P0 equals minus alpha plus beta Pc plus beta. So, that's simple, no? It will be exponentials. Okay, this will be, I know by heart, but Pc 0 e minus alpha plus beta t. This comes from this part, and then there is the e minus alpha plus beta t integral 0 t e alpha plus beta t s beta ds. This is, I don't know, Euler formula, so okay. This is not difficult. But I will show you another trick to solve this equation, which is something we often do when you have a differential equation in time, which is the Laplace Transform. I don't know if you know about it. So there is another way. This is a bit mathematical, but it's sometimes useful for other problems. I just want to show you the trick, but you will see. Maybe it's more difficult for you with the Laplace Transform, but later in the course, the Laplace will appear and it's useful. You can also take this equation, Pc equals minus alpha plus beta Pc plus beta, and you can apply the Laplace Transform. Do you know Laplace Transform? Okay, Laplace Transform is the following. So Pcs is defined as the integral from 0 to infinity of e minus st dct dt. Okay, this is called the Laplace Transform. I'm integrating the function on t, and I have e minus st. So s appears as a free parameter now. Alright, so this is, you can also call this Laplace Transform of PCT. Okay, why do I tell you this? This is just a trick. Just you know one more technique. Okay, I have this equation, and now I can do Laplace Transform on the left and on the right. On the left, I do the Laplace Transform of partial t p of c. On the right, I have minus alpha plus beta Pc Laplace Transform plus beta the Laplace transform of 1. Do you know what is the Laplace transform of 1? Okay, that's very easy because you put 1 here. So the Laplace transform of 1 is the integral 0 to infinity e minus st dt. Just this. And this is 1 over s. Okay? 1 over s. Laplace transform of 1 is 1 over s. So then this becomes b divided by s. This is b. So beta times the Laplace transform of 1. This. Okay, and what is the Laplace transform of the derivative of something? It's not so easy, but there is a theorem that tells you that this is S, Laplace transform of this S minus Pc at 0. This is a mathematical property. This is equal to minus alpha plus beta Pc S plus beta over S. So now you want to solve Pc, you just see that you get Pc of S Laplace transform times S plus alpha plus beta equals Pc0 plus beta of S. And that's it, because now you have the solution for PCS. PCPS equals Pc0 divided by S plus alpha plus beta plus beta divided by S plus alpha plus beta. So in this way you get this solution in the Laplace space of the probability of the channel to be closed, but you want Pc of t, time dependent. So now you have to invert Laplace. Okay, so you need to know what is the inverse Laplace of 1 over s plus something, and what is the inverse Laplace of 1 over s times this. But this is not so complicated, because you have to use the fact that the Laplace transform of e minus gamma t is, you can calculate this, 1 plus s plus gamma. So this will be like the Laplace of an exponential, this part. And that the Laplace transform of 1 minus e minus gamma t is 1 over s plus gamma. So this will be 1 minus exponential. If you use this property and this property, you get that Pc of t, inverse Laplace, will be, this is a number, Pc0, times the inverse Laplace of 1 over s plus this. I use this, so this becomes e minus alpha plus beta t, and now it will be beta times the Laplace, inverse Laplace of 1 over s times s plus alpha plus beta. And you can see that this is beta alpha plus beta 1 minus e minus alpha plus beta t. And this is it. So this is the same result that you get doing this. Okay, I'm just showing you a trick that sometimes is useful. For this problem, I don't know, maybe it's not such a shortcut, but when you have this type of equations, when you write them in Laplace, they look nice as well, because the derivatives disappear. You see, when you do the Laplace of something which is a derivative, it's just s, the Laplace transform, minus the initial condition. So the derivative has disappeared in this case, but you are in the Laplace domain. Okay, this is Laplace transform. This is a parenthesis that is useful for you, because then you learn other things. Okay. Okay, but I didn't want to divert too much from this. The key point is that in this equation, you see that there's two exponentials. So when t goes to infinity, which is stationary limit, this goes away and this goes away. So this is the only thing that remains in the long-term limit. Okay? So when you say t to infinity, this goes to beta over alpha plus beta. This is PC stationary. Right? This calculation you could have got directly with what I was teaching to you about two-state models. I told you two-state model was like k plus k minus. This is k minus divided by k plus k minus. So I gave you this, the solution for this model. It was before in your course. So there were two states. There was like k plus with k minus. That's it. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. So I could have skipped all this blackboard for you, but this is just for you to see, no, the usefulness of what I was teaching to you. Okay, this is PC st, and then PO st is okay. So this is beta over alpha plus beta. What is PO st? Alpha divided by alpha plus beta. They should sum 1. Alpha plus beta. Exactly. Fine. So with this we have something. Now a question I can make to you is, what is the current between these two states? So the current from C to O. The stationary current. This question should be trivial for all of you. No one? Well, remember what was the definition. C to 0, stationary. How do you define this? You just have to look at this drawing, okay? The current from C to 0. Okay? So it's, think about like there are a lot of, I don't know, coins in a column here. The current is the number of coins I have times the rate, how fast they go in this direction, minus the ones that come this way. So there's a balance, okay? It's the net current from C to O. Remember, okay, the current PC stationary times the rate to the right minus PO times the rate to the left. Okay, do you get this?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so PCST times alpha is alpha beta divided by alpha plus beta. Okay, so alpha beta divided by alpha plus beta. And P0ST beta is alpha beta divided by alpha plus beta. So it's the same. Alpha plus beta. So this is equal to 0. I think it should be totally clear to you. You have two states. You have a system jumping between two states. And imagine at time 0 you have all of them in C. So then they will start diffusing. Some of them come here, some stay here. But this doesn't continue forever. This stops, and it stops when there is no current. It means there are same amount of particles jumping to the left and to the right. This reaches equilibrium. Okay? Two states, one link, this goes to equilibrium. If you are not changing the rates. Remember, this was my lecture, I don't know, 3 or 4 lectures ago. When you have a loop, you can have currents. When you have two states, you let the system evolve, and in the end you have no current. This is equilibrium. You can do Boltzmann here. Distribution. Okay, very important. Alright, so this is one thing I wanted to say. And there's not much more because we saw this model before in the lectures, so you should know everything about this. maybe what I can show is, no, that's it. That's it. Yeah, I just want to say that you can also relate and say that this is one system with two energy levels, like this, and a particle jumping like this. Okay, it's the same model. Same model. You could say like there is an energy difference, delta E, such that P0 stationary is PC stationary E minus delta E over KBT. You can do this as well, but it's the same thing. Alright, so with this I finish this first model. I think it's really, really simple. So I don't know if I can. Okay, I will present the second model and then I do a pause. The second model is slightly more complicated, but you'll see not much more. It will be a channel that has two subunits, and it will have three states. This is the simplest thing you can think of. It should all dominate. So now I think about the channel that has two gates. So the way I will draw, and I hope it's clear, is as follows. This is the two subunit channel. Single line models. So this was one channel with one gate. It's this one, but the second will be the two subunit channel. So I will increase the level of complexity a little bit, and what I do here is the following. So I think about the channel like this. Okay, this is the membrane, and the channel has two gates. Okay, so imagine this is the membrane, so there are here the phospholipids. Okay, you know it very well. Drawing this, it's a bit redundant, but it's good to have this in mind. This is the membrane, here is the cell, and this is the extracellular world, but it doesn't matter. This is the channel, so we can think this green area, this is the ion channel. And the ion channel has two gates. And the point is, ions can pass when the two gates are open. Here, okay, maybe this is not a very good drawing, but here the gates are closed. Okay, they're very close to each other. So this is two gates closed. And I call this state, so all this is one state. This I call, I don't know, S0, or I can call it even 0. I don't know why S0 is useful, but let me call it state 0. Well, let me call it S0 because 0 looks like O, which is open, but here everything is closed. Okay, so S0. So it's two subunits closed. And now I will say the following: the channel can open one of the gates. But there are two gates that the channel can open. It can be this, or it can be this, right? You agree with me? So then there are two possibilities. In reality, there should be two arrows, okay? One is I open the channel on the top, and I let the channel in the bottom close. Okay, remember this is the membrane. Or I open the channel that is in the bottom. Okay, something like this. Right, this is the second state in which we have one channel open. One open channel. Right? And of course this is fluctuating, so there is, it could be the door on the top opens and then closes. Oh. Okay, so there is this as well. Okay. You follow me? Maybe not.
Yes.
Okay, again, think about this is ion channel. This is the ion channel. Okay, I'm grouping both together because I'm assuming that the probability for this to happen is the same of the probability for this to happen. Okay, there are two equal ion channels. Okay, and the last possibility is that the two channels are open. So either the one here that was closed opens, or the one here in the bottom that was closed opens. So you go to the situation where the two channels are open. This is the final state, which is S2. Two open channels. Okay. Again, you can open one of the doors, and then because of a fluctuation, one of the doors closes. You can come here. Now, the question is, what do I put in the rates? So I will put in the rates. I will build this model using this model. This will be my basic model for the one channel, and I say, okay, this was one channel with one gate, so this is what one gate is doing, and I will say I will build a channel with two gates which have the same dynamics. So the gate will do like this, but the channel has two gates. It's more complicated. And another assumption is that I say that this doesn't happen from 2 to 0. I say that it is not possible that the two gates close at once. Alright? This is another assumption. Okay. What does this imply? So, when I go, let me go to the simplest. When I go from here to here, what is the rate? Here. You don't know? Well, you should know because I will tell you the gate has this rate.
No. I'm saying that it shouldn't happen because both gates can't be closed.
No. Yes, both gates can be closed. They can
be closed.
Yeah, both can be closed, or one is open, or both are open. What cannot happen...
So that was an assumption.
Yeah, this is an assumption. What I say cannot happen is this. This I say is forbidden, okay? That both at once close, or both at once open.
Okay.
This is the only thing I say forbidden. So my question is, what is this rate? What is happening here? So I am closing one gate, no? What is the rate of closing a gate? Beta. Okay, this should be beta. Fine. Fine. Now, what is the rate for going this way?
Alpha.
Be careful. Alpha plus alpha.
2 alpha, yeah.
2 alpha. This is 2 alpha. Because there are two possibilities. If you have both closed, you can either close the top or close the bottom. There are two possible events. When you have only one open, either you come from here or from here, you only need to close one. And you only have one path. So that is beta. This is very different. Okay. Now, if you go from here to here, what is the rate?
So, what gate have the same probability to be open or closed?
Sorry?
What gate have the same probability to be open or closed?
Sorry, can you speak a bit slower and louder? It's just a problem of...
I think both gates, can they have the same probability to be open or closed?
Yeah, sure. This, if you have alpha equals to beta, that makes the job. So if you put the...
And you can have the cases where the probability to be open or closed for both rate can be different.
Yes. They can be different or they can be equal, because here I can put alpha equals to, I don't know, these are rates, remember, this is in hertz. I can put 1 hertz, so this means every second there is one opening on average, and beta I can take, I don't know, 5 hertz. if you say this means they are more closing than opening.
But here I'm talking because in the new case we have two gates, one up and one down.
Yes.
Yes, I was asking if both of them have the same probability to be open.
Yes. Yeah. That's why I put this 2 here, because it's alpha plus alpha. But if they would be different, I would be alpha plus alpha prime, for example. I'm saying that the 2 gates are identical. Okay? I hope it makes sense. If they are not identical, so this is a different structure, this won't be 2 alpha, it will be something else. And actually this would be a good exercise if I tell you this one has rates alpha beta and this one has rates alpha prime beta prime. Then instead of 2 alpha we'll have alpha plus alpha prime here. Okay, this is an extension, that's more difficult, but it's a good point. Alright, so now if I go this way I need to open one gate.
Alpha.
So now it's alpha, exactly. And if I go this way, there are two possible paths. Either I close the top or the bottom, so it's 2 beta. 2 beta. This is the model, and if you want to simplify and make a kind of an abstract model like here, it's very simple, because now you have S0, you have S1, and we have S2, and the rates are 2 alpha, alpha, 2 beta, beta. This is the one. 3 states, 2 parameters, right? So I will do a break here and think about it, and in the last part of the lecture I'll try to solve this model and there's something else I want to explain, so maybe it's slower than expected. Alright, let me do a short break. Okay. Can someone tell me the master equation looking at this diagram? Okay, I can start writing. So
instead of P, do we use S over here?
You can relax a bit, and if you do P as 0, it's a bit, it will be very heavy to write it. So you can say partial T of P0. You can call this state 0, you can call this state 1, and you can call this state 2 for simplicity. Okay? So you can say partial T P0 is, I think can help me on this, it's simple.
This should be 2 alpha.
Okay, 2 alpha.
No, it's open. I think it's open, so it's 2 alpha.
Is minus 2 alpha.
Minus because you are losing
Yes.
from 0. Minus 2 alpha. What
Minus 2 alpha. P0, 1.
P.
I mean, you're going from 0 to 1, right?
Sure, but be very careful. The 0 to 1 is encoded by this.
Okay.
Okay? So,
Yeah.
what you have to put is from where do you go,
Mm-hmm.
and then to where do you go is encoded by the rate. So that's why I put
Okay.
P0, from where do I go, to alpha is the rate. Okay? Okay, and then what else?
Well, then,
Beta, B1.
Beta P1, because I come from 1
yeah.
with rate beta.
Yes.
Okay, anything else?
The
No.
other way.
No, you said no, because remember, I'm writing this like a matrix. So there's 0, 1, and there should be the 2. but the 2 doesn't contribute. There is nothing coming from 2.
Ah, right. The
Yes.
assumption. Got it.
So there's nothing there. So it's a simpler matrix, you see. Okay, then I go to P1. So P1 has from 0 I gain P0 to alpha with a plus. Okay, what do I put now? From 1
Minus beta.
Minus beta, yes. But from 1 you can go to 2, no?
Yeah. So there is minus beta minus alpha.
Yes.
2 ways to escape from 1.
Yes.
Okay? And now, something else. So I counted this, I counted this,
Speak up again.
There's another one going in.
going in, so it's a plus, and I count from 2. 2 beta, P2. This one, the state 1, is connected to all of them. That's why you have this. Okay, and finally, P2 is, okay, you have, from 0 there is nothing coming. From 1, I have alpha,
Alpha.
gain, it's a gain term. And then from 2, I'm escaping. So I lose, we write minus 2 beta. Okay. Fine. This is it. So this is the master equation. It is more complicated because there are 3 states, 0, 1, and 2. So it shouldn't be so trivial to do. But, okay, if you want to write it as a matrix, it would be like this. I wrote it already very well organized. So this is minus 2 alpha to alpha 0, beta minus alpha plus beta alpha 0 to beta minus 2 beta times P0, P1, P2. Okay, do you agree? Alright, so what is important is if you sum the columns, they all sum 0. Okay, makes sense. When you have this type of Markov process, when there are no holes or nothing strange, like there are finite states and you are all connected, or not even all connected, you have a Markov network, the usual one. Remember, we are in continuous time, so the sum of the column is 0. All the columns, okay? That's for conservation of probability, as I explained to you. Alright, so as you know, you could get from here the eigenvalues, and from this you will get a solution of the problem, okay? It's as simple as this. Well, simple. You have to get the eigenvalues of this matrix, okay? So, I will first go to the simple things, and then to the more complicated. So the most complicated will be to solve this finite time. But the first thing you can do, well, actually you can, I think you can diagonalize this matrix and get the eigenvalues. So it's not that bad. But just to say one thing is that we can get a stationary state. By noticing that we can notice the following. We can remember stationary state is when the probabilities don't change in time anymore. So you can put this 3 to 0 and solve it. That would be stationary state, if you remember well. So the strategy I will follow is the following. So I will say, first of all, well, there are many ways, but one way is I say there is no current. This is a system with 3 states, it reaches equilibrium, and there is no current here in stationary state, and there is no current here. If this would be a loop, there could be a current. But this is not a loop, this is just a line, and in this line, this finite, there's no current. You can also see it from here. So this is the net current through this link, in this case. And this is 0 in the stationary state. So let me say as follows, 1 second. Yes, I can also say this is equal to 0 in the stationary state. So 2 alpha P0 plus zeta P1 in the stationary state. So all I'm doing is I take this, and I say that when time is long, this is 0, this doesn't change anymore. And I can take this equation and this equation. Okay, so this will be 0 equals P1, so it's alpha P1 minus 2 beta P2. Stationary. Okay. What do I get from here? So the first thing I do is I solve P1 in terms of P0. So P1 stationary is 2 alpha divided by beta P0 stationary. Fine, easy, no? And in the second, I get that P2 stationary is alpha divided by 2 beta P1 stationary. Okay, so the first relates 1 to 0, and the second 2 to 1. But I can take the first relation and put it here. 1 is 2 alpha over beta P0. So this will be alpha squared divided by beta squared P0. So I get P1 in terms of P0, P2 in terms of P0, and then I have the normalization constant condition. P1 plus P2 plus P0 equals 1. So if I continue, try to do this here. Okay, so I have these two relations, and now I use that P0 plus P1 plus P2 equals to 1. So I plug in the first equation and the second equation. It will be P0 T times 1 plus 2 alpha divided by beta plus alpha squared divided by beta squared. And this, if you realize this is a square, because this is P0. Now I put common denominator, beta squared, and now I have beta squared plus 2 alpha beta plus alpha squared. This is alpha plus beta squared. Square equals to 1. Okay, could you follow? Yes or no? Please say something.
Yes.
Okay, so now you can solve immediately from this equation that P0 stationary is beta squared divided by alpha plus beta squared. Solved. Now I use this equation, 2 alpha divided by beta, whatever I have here. P1 stationary is, I'm using this equation. I use equation, and these are called double asterisk first asterisk becomes 2 alpha beta divided by alpha plus beta squared. And the last, okay, simple, you don't even need to know to use that one because they should sum 1 is beta squared plus 2 alpha beta plus alpha squared.
Alpha squared.
Exactly. Easy. Now it's easy. See? Alpha squared, alpha plus beta squared. Listo. So done. Now this is the stationary state of the system. For any rates you put, you can know what will be the population of each of these states. Okay? The probability to be in each of the states in the long time limit. This is what is stationary distribution. Okay. Now something that is nice. Okay, one thing you should know is that you could get this result also from the zero eigenvector. So if you do this will be that vector equals this matrix times P. There will be 3 eigenvalues for this. So the stationary is defined as 0. So it is the eigenvector with eigenvalue 0. Okay? ESP is the eigenvector for lambda equals to 0. Lambda comes from this fact, P equals lambda P. Okay, this is the eigenvector equation. If you solve it, you will get the same thing. So I just did it in this way, but formally, when you get a more complicated system, you will do this thing, what I'm showing here, okay? You will get eigenvalues from W, and then hope that one is 0, because otherwise there is no stationary state. And the eigenvector, this is the eigenvector with lambda 0, the 0 here, is the stationary distribution. Right. From here, yes.
What happens if the eigenvalue is a complex number?
Sorry?
What happens if the eigenvalue is a complex number?
Then you will have oscillations. Okay? You remember that the solution for this equation, you will have P of t, there will be C1 E lambda 1t plus C2 E lambda 2t plus C3 E lambda 3t. This is the general solution. These are the eigenvalues. This will be 0, so this will be the stationary. And these two, they could be real or imaginary. If it's imaginary, you could get, for example, E I omega t here. There should be the negative imaginary somewhere else. Okay? There could be something else, and then there will be here something with E minus I omega t. So when you get this, you remember that E I omega t plus E minus I omega t is cosine, right? So you will get sines and cosines in the distributions. In this model you don't get it, but in some Markov models you can get oscillations. Okay. So when there is, yeah.
For instance, if you have a downsample, a down oscillation, that means with a large sign, the probability should be 0.
Yes. Yes, be careful. It's not the position should be 0. What will happen is that these two, they will have negative real parts, the eigenvalues. So it will be, this will decay. So they will decay, both of these. But this one will survive. So you will go to the stationary state. You won't go to 0. This one will go to 0. This one will go to 0. So you can have oscillations, but damping, as you say, But this one, because the eigenvalue will be 0, this will stay. Okay? Don't worry, because in the homework, I'll give you an example. You will have to calculate this explicitly, and you will see it. The best for this is doing examples. I can give you all the theory I want, but in statistical physics and also biophysics and stochastic process, the best is to work with examples. So you will see all of it. Don't worry. All right. So one thing more I want to say is, okay, there's something I will make it a bit fast. Okay, I don't know if I will have time today, but I will summarize, and then you can do a calculation on your own. It's related to what I'm saying. Is that you can measure deviations from steady state. So, deviation from steady state. And define something like y of j, which I define as pj minus pj st. This is the time-dependent value of the probability, like p0, p1, p2, and this is its long time limit. Okay, so this is a variable that measures how far I am from the stationary limit. Okay, so just y0, for example, will be p0 at time t minus p0 in the long time limit. This is a number, and this is something that depends on time. So using this, you can use the first two equations that I put before and get the following. You can get, okay, after some algebra, when you read this statement, it can be very dangerous, okay? Sometimes it means it's two steps, and sometimes it means it's 5 pages, okay? But you can check in the book and the chapter I told you, or the map. But let me just show you that you get this. Y0, theta, to alpha y0, and this one is right. So this is the equation you get. This is the, I recall, deviation from P0 at time t to the stationary state, and this is deviation from P2 to its stationary state. This is a system which can be written like this. T equals A, matrix A times Y. You see that here there are no terms that have no y0, y2. So it's partial t of a vector is a matrix times the vector. Very similar to what I showed before. But now A is, you have it here, minus beta minus 2 alpha, minus beta minus alpha minus alpha. Okay, the matrix is like this. And again, you can look for the eigenvalues. So this is a 2 by 2 matrix. The solution is something like this. This is a time-dependent vector. Like this, plus another time-dependent vector, like this. And the eigenvalues, and now you will see the point. The eigenvalues of this matrix. Okay, so these lambdas are obtained from this. The determinant of A minus lambda identity equal to 0. The two eigenvalues are negative. So you can show this is even more algebra, but you can show this is minus alpha plus beta, and the other is minus 2 alpha plus beta. Both are negative. Okay? There is no zero eigenvalue. This means the long time limit. Be careful, this is not the master equation. This is not partial T of P equals matrix P. This is partial T of something else. Here is the deviation from steady state. Both are negative. Negative. Which means that y in the limit of t to infinity is equal to 0. So, okay, this makes sense, you should say, because this vector has the deviation from steady state, and I'm saying I go to steady state. So I should converge, and my difference with steady state should go to 0. That's the only thing. So this makes sense. Alright, and I think with this I will finish because the other thing is not so important.
Sir, this
Yes.
is the system which we get is for the previous system.
Sorry, can you repeat?
The system of the deviation is for the previous system. You have three states.
Yes, yes. So there are 3 states, but now I'm looking at the deviation from the probability to its stationary value. And you just realize when you solve the problem that you can solve the deviation from the first state and the third. They are autonomous from the state 1. But still it's the same model. It's a model with 3 states. Okay?
We don't need to add the state 1.
No, because you can find that these 2 are autonomous. Why? Because there is the sum of the 3 probabilities. So P1 plus P2 plus P0 equals 1. So then, when you use that condition, you get into these equations. So it's like, when I solve this, remember, when I solve here, I kill one of the equations. I only use 2 of them. I use the equation for 0, for 2, and the normalization. You cannot do this all the time. It is only when you have a very particular structure of the model. In this case, I said that the transition matrix was, this is a very advanced question actually, but the transition matrix is, it has something here, something here, something here, something here, something here, something here, and something here, and there are zeros. There are 2 zeros. So this special structure is like, what we are doing later is like breaking into 2 subsystems like this. This is more or less the idea on behind, but in general, you won't get equations like this, okay? In general, when you have 3 states. You get this because of the topology. You have 0, 1, and 2, and there is topology, okay? If I had the model like this, then you will have the 3rd equation, okay? This is a very special model, okay? Where in the end you can write this way. I will give you, okay, you will solve your own, this model, and see it. But you cannot do that in general, okay? This is a very specific model. But in general, you have to solve the 3 by 3 matrix.
If the rates are different,
Sorry?
if the rates are different,
Yeah, if there is a difference.
does this still hold?
No, if there is a difference, it's another story.
Okay.
This will be looking more ugly. This will be looking more ugly. The general phenomenology will be the same. So you will go to steady state. So these vectors of difference. So you will have a 3 by 3 matrix, and it will go to 0. This is clear. But let's say it won't be as nice as I'm plotting here. Okay. This nice formula, like this, is because we had 2 alpha alpha, 2 beta beta. If I change slightly that, this will be a monster. Okay? So if I tell you, I don't know, you use Mathematica, is this nice program to do calculations? So I tell you Mathematica, I put you 9 rates in a network like this, and each rate is different. I tell you solve, get the 0 eigenvector. That will be a very, very complicated stuff. It won't be looking so nice as this. Okay? We are lucky that in this model things are simple, but in general things are not that simple. This is what you should keep in mind. Okay? If I put this model and I put, or already if I put here gamma and here sigma, this won't be so nice. Okay? It won't be so nice. This model has something that is called the invariant manifold. But okay, I don't want to enter, it's so theoretical. I don't know how bad I'm with time, but I want to at least get okay, I don't know if I can have time for the next. Okay, let me explain one thing more about Ligand Gate ion channels, because the class was cut in the middle, so let me continue a little bit. Alright, so I'll go now, starting at least on Ligand Gate ion channel. And here I'm thinking about, okay, this is the idea. You have a membrane here. These are the lipids in the membrane, and you have, for instance, the ionic flow induced by binding neurotransmitters, which can be thought like structure like this. So you have an ion channel that has 2 parts. Okay, not so good drawing, but this ion channel is specific binding to ligands, some molecules that can bind here, and this is the neurotransmitter. For example, of course, and if the molecule binds, this can generate a conformational change. For example, when one ligand is bound, suddenly the gates open. So this changes the conformation to something different that lets the ions pass. Okay? Typically in chemistry, they think about the receptor ligand reaction, which is something like this. This will be the free receptor, this is the ligand, and this will be the receptor ligand. Okay? And you can think about this as a chemical reaction in which if you are in equilibrium, the concentrations of the reactants and the products have a relation. So you can think about it in equilibrium. You will have the following equation: AL divided by R times R equals E minus epsilon kT. This will be called epsilon, it could be called delta G, it could be called delta E, it depends on the conditions, but this is a binding free energy, so it's how much energy do you release or do you take to make this reaction. And this is also sometimes called, is this definition, sometimes it's called 1 over kd, where this is called the dissociation constraint. Right. Of course, when you see this equation, you should be a bit worried because concentrations are units, right? So, and this is a density, it's 1 over meter cubes, or 1 over centimeter cubes. And here is the concentration, so this cancels the units. But this has units. So, how is this possible? And here there's an exponential. What you should keep in mind is that these are with respect to 1 molar. Okay? In reality, when I write x is with respect to 1 molar. 1 molar. So, for example, if x, if we have 1 nanomolar of R, then here we write R is 1 nanomolar with respect to 1 molar, which is 10 to the minus 9. This is the way we interpret this equation. Right? So, where do I want to go with this? So let me just take this equation. Yes. And the only thing I want to highlight is that there is an equation relating the fraction of occupied receptors. So now, what I will think about is that imagine there is a membrane, and there are many of these receptors, and all of them are independent. Okay, all of them is a channel. All of them is independent on the other. There's a channel for this, there's a channel for this, and a channel for this. And there are ligands outside. So some of them are free, some of them are occupied. These models for receptors are very useful, and you can also, they are important for cancer as well. I can explain to you in a more advanced lecture in another moment. But the key point is that, okay, remember, this, forgot something. This is the binding free energy. What I want to say is that there will be a total amount of receptors, among which some of them are free and some of them are occupied. Okay. For example, here there are 2 occupied and 1 free. But this is an equation in concentration. So you have the cell, the total amount of receptors, some of them are occupied, some of them are free. So now what I do is I come here and I will be only looking at the occupied receptors, at this. So I will be seeing in my formula, I see this, and I see this. But let's say I'm blind to the others, okay? Then, what I do is, I take this equation, and I use the other equation to write R in terms of RT and L. So, I take this, with this, and this implies that RL divided by R, which is R total minus RL times L equals 1 divided by kd. Right? So, what I do now is I will put this on the right and divide by R total, RL divided by R total equals 1 minus RL divided by R total times L divided by KD. This is basic algebra. So now I can solve. My quantity of interest will be the fraction of occupied receptors. This is the number of receptors which are occupied, and this is the total. This is the quantity I want to solve. So this will be, I can move this to the right and then divide. So it will be L divided by KD divided by 1 plus L divided by KD. So just 2 steps. This is very simple. RL divided by R total, you can check, is L divided by L plus KD. This is what you get. So the fraction of occupied receptors is this on the left. Receptors depends on the concentration of ligand, which is outside, in a nonlinear way. This is a nonlinear dependency. Okay? It's nonlinear. And there are a lot of nonlinear phenomena in biophysics. Nonlinear with the concentration of ligands. So if you plot this as a function of L, what you get is L, and this is this fraction. What you get is not a line. It is not that you add more and more and more ligands and there are more and more occupied receptors. At some point, you occupy all the receptors, no? This is not an infinite source of receptors. There's a finite amount, which is this. So what makes sense and what happens from this equation, if you plot this has a structure that makes like this. Okay? It is nonlinear. So it goes from 0 occupied receptors to 1. Okay. And this appears in dose response, this is like Michaelis-Menten and so on. So it is not, this is common to see. In the next lecture, I'll show a slightly more complicated model, which has cooperative effects, so channels that talk to each other, and which changes slightly this curve. We will see how to change this curve. Okay. But there is a nonlinear. There's saturation. It's linear at the beginning, but then it has this sigmoid. So there I'm plotting L divided by L plus KD. Of course, if I change KD, I change the point at which I turn. Okay. Right. So this is it for today. Please let me know if there are questions. If not, happy. It was clear. But right. In any case, you have the homework for the other part yet. All right. No questions? So then, close session.